into the future where the glass is half full and you'll need new glasses, where you'll be jumping from conclusions.
The past is annulled and a new future is born.
Never before in history has so much meant so little to so many. AD on the radio.
So let's you and I discuss how Trump was wrong. Let's discuss how Trump was wrong. But first, because we believe in facts, let's discuss the challenges the rescue efforts in Puerto Rico face. You see, Puerto Rico, and Trump got this right, was bogged down by insane financial chaos long time before the hurricane. Puerto Rico, $74 billion public debt load. Decade-old economic recession happening now. And with regard to the things that Donald Trump said about their infrastructure, water, power, these systems were already, by all accounts, more or less broken before the hurricane. You see, there's a guy, Jorge Rodriguez. You read about him? He's a Puerto Rican CEO. He's got this engineering firm called Passive in Puerto Rico. He's a smart guy. He's a graduate with a business degree from Harvard Business School. He was named a most distinguished graduate by the University of Puerto Rico. He's a very learned individual. And now he wants to help in the aftermath of Maria. So what he did was this. His firm is an engineering firm, and he sent 50 of his engineers to help. Now, so far, this is something everybody can understand. But what raised eyebrows was the fact that this guy, Jorge Rodriguez, he bypassed Puerto Rican officials, local officials, went around them, and when it came time to donate his resources, this guy who bases his company in Puerto Rico, he skipped over all that, went straight to FEMA. And he was asked about it. And he was asked about this so much that he wrote an editorial about it for the New York Post. And he said, for the last 30 years, the Puerto Rican government has been completely inept at handling regular societal needs. So I just don't see it functioning in a crisis like this one. And he said, our $118 billion debt crisis is the result of government corruption and mismanagement. Now, a lot of people have been quick to point out in this situation that Puerto Ricans elected a new governor this past November just gone by, but this wasn't a dude that Rodriguez believed in either. He said his entire administration is totally inexperienced and they have no clue how to handle a crisis of this magnitude. For instance, shortly after the hurricane hit, the government imposed a curfew from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m., and then they changed it. Now it's 7 p.m. to 5 a.m., and it makes no sense. Because this curfew has prevented fuel trucks from transporting the fuel to people that need it. He said these trucks, the ones that were delivering fuel to those in need in the wake of the hurricane, should have been allowed to run for 24 hours to address our needs. But they've been stalled, so we have massive lines at gas stations and severe shortages at our hospitals and our supermarkets. Diesel powering generators to do things like preserve food and keep people in hospitals alive. Because of this curfew, Rodriguez is saying, can't get there. And then he said that it was the federal government who put forth an organized response to the hurricane. And he said, I'm really tired of Puerto Rican government officials blaming the federal government for their woes and not acting fast enough to help people on the island. The first responders and FEMA have all been outstanding in this crisis, and they should be supported. And he also cautioned the U.S. government, specifically Congress, with regard to donation money, relief funds, things of that nature. He said, watch out what relief funds you approve and let our local government handle. Don't let the Puerto Rican government play the victim and fool you. They will have no clue what they're doing, and I worry that they will mishandle anything that comes their way. So you get the picture. This narrative of people doing nothing. Our government forgot Puerto Ricans and forgot that Puerto Ricans are American citizens and they're not white, so no one in power cares. Well, it's not so simple as that. Things aren't black and white. Things aren't cut and dry. It's not the simple narrative the cable news channels like to trot out for manufactured outrage that makes for awesome ratings and clicks. But there is one thing that is very black and white and very clear and easy to understand, and that's Trump being wrong.
Real radio.
104.1.
Where the left and right come together for fundamental truths. AD on the radio, on Twitter at ADSXE.
So, I have to admit, this was funny. Made me chuckle. Alec Baldwin was back on Saturday Night Live with President Trump over the weekend. They were criticizing Trump's response to the crisis in Puerto Rico. Here in this sketch, he's on the phone with the mayor of Puerto Rico, whom the real-life Trump criticized on Twitter.
Yes, Mayor, you wanted to talk to me?
Yes, Mr. President, I'm so glad to have you on the phone. I'm begging you. Puerto Rico needs your help.
I hear you loud and clear, and you called the best person for the job. Trust me, I know things are, as the locals say, despacito. We're going to get you more help to you. We'll get you immediately, probably by Tuesday or Wednesday at the latest.
Mr. President, that's not good enough.
Well, you should have paid your bills. FEMA takes a few days unless you join FEMA Prime.
What are you talking about?
Ma'am, I don't know if you know this, but you're in an island in the water. The ocean water, big ocean, with fishies and bubbles and turtles that bite. We want to help you, but we have to take care of America first.
Wait, you do know we're a U.S. territory, don't you?
I mean, I do, but not many people know that, no.
Sir, we just need help, please.
Wow. That woman was so nasty.
So, was it clever? Yeah. Did it make me chuckle? Sure. Is it a true-to-life representation of the situation in Puerto Rico? Yeah. Not necessarily on board with that. Look, there's a simple narrative that's been fed to us by cable news media who want to manufacture outrage for awesome ratings, massive amounts of clicks. But as we've said, Puerto Ricans like Jorge Rodriguez, CEO of an engineering firm called Passive in Puerto Rico, who donated resources, sent a whole bunch of his engineers to help, bypassed Puerto Rican government and local officials, went straight to FEMA. He said, for the last 30 years, the Puerto Rican government has been completely inept at handling regular societal needs. I don't see it functioning in a crisis like this one. Our $118 billion debt crisis is a result of government corruption and mismanagement. So like I said, it's not a simple situation. The picture that the narrative of people doing nothing, our government forgetting Puerto Ricans are American citizens, they're not white, so no one in power cares. It's not so simple. Things aren't black and white, things aren't cut and dry. There's real human life on the line, and because there is, it deserves to be dug into a little bit deeper. Now, there is one thing that is crystal clear, though. Very easy to understand in this situation. And that's Trump being wrong. I'm not talking about the whys and wherefores of government ineptitude.
It's going down the tubers.
I'm not talking about anything other than being a decent human being or being any kind of a leader. Donald Trump was wrong to attack Puerto Rico in the middle of a crisis. Look, we presented the factual realities of the situation. You and I just talked about that. It's not cut and dry. There's Trump blood in the water, and partisan news media and political opposition are all over that. And that's wrong. But Donald Trump attacked Puerto Rico at a time of crisis for more than 3 million Americans living in Puerto Rico with massive financial devastation, no power, no water, no fuel. Somehow, Donald Trump has managed to find a way to play the victim, to suggest that the situation is unfair to him. Donald Trump has found a way to talk smack about the Americans that are suffering under his watch, which, let's be crystal clear, is not okay. You see, Donald Trump, and as I think about this, to be fair, maybe this is why, after the small loan of $1 million from his dad, Donald Trump has gone as far as he has. Donald Trump sees the world like a nail. And Donald Trump unquestioningly, right or wrong, believes himself to be the ultimate hammer. To him, every situation is a competitive one where there's a winner and a loser. And in his mind, in his estimation, Donald Trump wins. He always wins. And if there's at any time a hint of anything less than total victory,
I disavow, okay?
If at any time there's a hint of anything less than total Trump victory, it is clearly the fault of someone else. It's not fair. Should be stricken from the record. Wrong. Bad. Or whatever he chooses to end his sentences with on Twitter these days. And anytime there's a hint of anything less than total Trump victory, Donald Trump's going to bitch and moan and stamp his feet and whine about how unfairly he's being treated. I think that's the thing that bothers me the most about Trump, is how much he whines.
For more stimulation and less irritation, 9 out of 10 doctors choose KPRC AM 950, Houston's more stimulating talk radio.
Don't get the blues, get all the news. We mean all of you guys out there in Radio Land. All aboard!
He's back. AD on the radio.
Give it up, yeah. Give it up, yeah. Bring this on, come on, come on.
So as you and I were discussing, the idea of getting aid, or the challenge of getting aid to those that need it in Puerto Rico, is not a simple thing. Their infrastructure, even before the hurricane hit, water, power systems, things like that, they were already, in many ways, broken. People like Jorge Rodriguez, Puerto Rican CEO of this engineering firm, Passive, wanted to help. Puerto Rican, with his company headquartered in Puerto Rico, decided to completely bypass what he called a broken and corrupt government and send his team of engineers to help. But like I said, went around local officials, went around Puerto Rican officials, and went straight to FEMA. So unless you're there, unless you're on the ground, unless you have experience of the situation, the idea of getting the aid to the people that so desperately need it in Puerto Rico is a complicated thing. And the fault doesn't lie 100 million% with the federal efforts to do that. They face challenges. Now we get that out of the way. We were talking about what Donald Trump did that was so unquestionably, unbelievably wrong. And that is, he attacked Puerto Rico at a time of crisis for more than 3 million Americans living in Puerto Rico. Massive financial devastation, no power, no water, no fuel. Like we were saying, somehow Trump managed to find a way to play the victim in all this and say that the situation is unfair to him. Found a way to talk smack about Americans that are suffering. And like we were saying, this is maybe why Donald Trump has gone as far as he has in life. Because he believes that in every situation there's a winner and a loser, and in his mind he always wins. And if he doesn't win, if there's anything less than complete and utter and total Trump victory, he's going to whine. He's going to stamp his feet. He's going to talk about how unfairly he's been treated. And that, I think, like I said, that's what bothers me the most about Trump. How much he whines. He's whiny. He's thin-skinned. In many ways, he's just a complete wuss. He's a constant complainer. Guy that can't get through the day without running to the internet in a bid for sympathy, to moan incessantly about how the world is against him. Man the hell up. Get some cojones and another layer of skin. Being president is a tough job. Suck it up. See, if you're like me, you believe that Trump was way ahead of the curve when it comes to the sense of entitlement that millennials are accused of having. And you know, it's funny because people love to throw this term snowflakes around. People on the right love to call people on the left snowflakes. But if there's a guy who can't take the idea that he's anything less than a shimmering and unique, super special, super shiny individual that deserves a trophy for showing up, that's our president. That's Trump. Trump's a man, in the loosest sense of the word, without the cojones necessary to deal with anyone suggesting that he isn't the best at anything and everything. And maybe that's why he attacked Puerto Rico, kicking them when they're down. Because Puerto Rico in its entirety didn't, while they were struggling to find food, water, shelter, fuel, and missing family members, find the time to fix their lips to his flabby posterior. And because some people who are now homeless are wondering how many days it's going to be until they have water and if their family members are still alive, dared to say things weren't that great right now, he attacked Puerto Rico while hanging out at a golf tournament. Trump sends 18 tweets in 11 hours. Gems like, such poor leadership from Puerto Rico. They want everything to be done for them. Look, we've already discussed Puerto Rico as a place with regard to government and infrastructure had challenges long before the hurricane. But to kick someone when they're down like that, it boggles my mind. I was speechless when I saw it. I had no speech. And you know me. I'm the guy that does everything he can to heal divides, build bridges, try and find a way for people to come together. When it's a Trump bloodbath by media types, I'm the one to play devil's advocate. When the right is going after the left, calling them snowflakes, I'm the one who goes, that really does no good whatsoever. But I just can't find a single shred of anything good to talk about with how Donald Trump handled the situation in Puerto Rico. I'm separating him from the federal relief efforts and FEMA and all of the above, talking about his part in this, which seemed to be hanging out at a golf course, tweeting about how they want everything to be done for them. If by they you mean the millions of American citizens who in Puerto Rico, okay. And I think this is what bothers me so much about Trump. Besides the whininess, he had an opportunity. He really had a real opportunity to handle this well, to be a champion of Americans. He could have said nothing in response to the criticism that he received. He could have tweeted nothing. Or he could have offered words of reassurance and inspiration and used this as a chance to reach out and win by being magnanimous to all, to let the criticism slide off his back and focus on the thing that mattered, the people in crisis, the American citizens in crisis. But he just couldn't do it. Too busy tripping over his own ego and insecurities. He felt attacked. And you know what? In fairness, shame on his political opponents that would politicize a crisis like this and would use it as a crutch to gain ground. But bigger shame on Trump for taking the bait. Being the bigger person in this situation is what helps to get things done. Donald Trump felt attacked, and in the press he was, 100%. But instead of focusing on the crisis faced by millions of Americans, he focused on himself. And in an act of supremely selfish immaturity, devoid of humanity, he attacked Puerto Rican leadership as they stare down the barrel of a historic recovery challenge. He talked about Puerto Rico's debt as people went without electricity, water, and food. He played the victim, saying he was being treated unfairly by the press and his political opponents as American citizens struggled to locate missing family members who may be dead. Trump played the victim and made it about himself. Marco Rubio, who to me is looking a whole lot more like a coulda, shoulda, woulda every single day, or little Marco Rubio, as Trump used to call him, ironically proved to be the bigger man when he said, and quite rightly so, every minute we spend in the political realm bickering with one another over who's doing what or who's wrong or who didn't do right, every minute we spend doing that is a minute of energy and time that we're not spending trying to get the response right. So why is Trump like this? Why is the Donald Trump response in a time like this? Why is the response to narcissistically make it about himself? Why, when other people are in crisis, does he lash out at those who are hurting? Why can't he rise above? Why can't Donald Trump do the right thing? And again, I'm completely separating Donald Trump from FEMA, from any federal relief effort. I'm talking about human being. I'm talking about having a freaking heart, about making people feel like he cares. Letting these things slide off of his back and focusing on doing right by the people he answers to as an employee of all of us, as an employee of all of his taxpayers. Why is Trump like this? Why does he lash out at those who are hurting? And why can't he rise above? Well, Gandhi once said, "A coward is incapable of exhibiting love. Love is the prerogative of the brave." And in this case, Gandhi was right. Now, the island has virtually no running water or electricity. Around 80% of the island's crops have been destroyed. Puerto Ricans are gathering around what's left of the island's cell towers, desperately trying to contact missing loved ones, people that are unaccounted for. There's 3.4 million residents of Puerto Rico, and almost every last one of them needs assistance recovering from the storm. Here's how you can help. If you want to help our fellow American citizens in Puerto Rico, there are many ways to do that. You can find a comprehensive list of almost all the charities supporting Puerto Rico in its time of need at GoFundMe.com/Hurricane Maria. That's GoFundMe.com/Hurricane Maria. All right, Funkhouser. I suppose there's a couple things that I feel like we should talk about.
Uh-huh.
Feel like we should talk about the fact that a guy got some friends to help him move, but they didn't realize they're actually robbing a house for him. Absolute stroke of genius and ingenuity.
Okay.
And
sounds like my friends. My friends would do that. I think I would buy into that.
Yeah, it's very creative, impressive in its inception, and I suppose. I'm in two minds about the shooting in Vegas. You might have wondered why we haven't talked about this yet. The only new information that we have at this stage in the game is information on the shooter and his family and his life's history and how he lived. And there's plenty of places where a person can get that.
There's a couple of stories coming out with heroes. There's some hero stories starting to emerge. But we don't know any names of those that we lost yet. Yeah.
And the reason, if you've been wondering, the reason why we haven't talked about the situation in Vegas is, well, we don't know. We don't know what this guy's motivation is. But I don't want to say his name on the radio. I don't want to turn him into a folk hero. I don't want to be responsible for giving him any kind of notoriety. And if we perhaps get some genuine insight into why he did what he did, well, then that's something that we can talk about. That's something that maybe will help things like this not happen moving forward. But right now,
they'll figure it out.
We're just getting bits and pieces of information about him, and I don't want to in any way, shape, or form give this guy, whose name I won't say, any kind of mention or attention. If that's what he wanted, then I don't want to be the one that gives it to him. But before we continue, we will say that our prayers and thoughts and condolences and our love, this is absolutely with those that were lost, the families of those that were lost, in the entire community of Las Vegas. Yesterday when I woke up, found out about Vegas. That was the first thing I did, because it was unavoidable. Every alert on every phone has been going off for a while, and when I finally woke up and checked out what was going on, I was horrified. The second thing I did, well, I had been on the fence for a little while about booking a trip to go see Jerry Seinfeld play Caesar's Palace. Expense, time, all these things factored in. But the moment I found out about what had happened in Vegas, I booked my trip. Viva Las Vegas. God bless Las Vegas. God bless us all.
You walk these streets most every day. You're waiting to get washed away.
More AD on the radio.
Back once again, the ill behavior, delivering and giving you my musical savior. Back once again, it's your boy AD, and can't nobody rock a body better than me.
So, a little later on, we'll discuss the ingenuity, the stroke of criminal inspiration that led to a guy getting some friends to help him move. But what his friends didn't realize was they're actually robbing a house for him. We'll do that a little later on. Right now, though, let's talk about the fact that it's a strange time of year. And the time of year is this. It's the crossover between baseball and football season. Before I was on the radio, I used to be a live DJ at a bunch of different places, and that included some sports bars. Sports bars were great because all you really had to do was like ask a couple of trivia questions and then put different games on different TVs, and then you go home.
Let's see numbers, but I put food in the fridge for a year or so at one point of my life. But you always run into that tough situation at the beginning of football season, the end of baseball season, where it's
postseason baseball, or, in the run up to postseason baseball, people are struggling to, baseball teams are struggling to clinch. People are having all excited about a possible run at a World Series or a wild card. And then football starts, and you've got a ball game on, a baseball game on, and gosh freaking forbid, somebody comes in and wants to watch football, and you've got the baseball game. It's Monday Night Football. What are you thinking? Do you hate America? Somebody actually said this to me once. So there's this tremendous conflict this time of year. As the summer fades away and the fall takes hold and the days get shorter and the nights get longer, you got to deal with overlapping sports. And it made me think of this classic bit from George Carlin.
Baseball is played on the diamond, in a park, the baseball park.
Football is played on a gridiron in a stadium, sometimes called Soldier Field or War Memorial Stadium.
Baseball begins in the spring, the season of new life.
Football begins in the fall when everything is dying. In football, you wear a helmet.
In baseball, you wear a cap.
Football is concerned with downs. What down is it?
Baseball is concerned with ups. Who's up? Are you up? I'm not up. He's up.
In football, you receive a penalty.
In baseball, you make an error. Whoops.
All right, Funkhouser, let's do some news.
I thought you'd never ask.
This is My Witness News. In no way, shape, or form fair and certainly not balanced. And now, super producer to the stars, Barry Funkhouser. Barry Funkhouser.
Yes.
Barry Funkhouser. Barry Funkhouser.
I found another Barry Funkhouser on Facebook.
Oh,
Actually,
yeah?
I found two other ones. Isn't that strange?
What'd you do?
I don't know. Should I be their friends? I mean, I know of the doctor in Virginia. I don't know if he wants to be my friend, but there's a third Barry Funkhouser. I think I'm going to fight him.
Did you Google yourself?
Oh, I've done that, but I went on Facebook and I searched for myself on Facebook.
Were you searching for yourself or were you searching for other people with your name? Because one of these reflects better on you as a person.
I was friending a new friend on Facebook. I said, go ahead and search for me on there. I have a very unique name. There's probably only one of me, or the doctor in Virginia. And there was a third one. Very peculiar.
I found another one of me in England. And I didn't find this other person because I popped in my last name and I was looking for relatives. And I found this one other guy with my exact name. I was like, he really looks like my cousin too. Like really looked, and I was like, we have to be related. This guy has to be related to me. There's this English guy who was sort of like a competitive beatboxer. I can't even make it up. I was like, I've got a cousin that looks like you. I also enjoy all the sort of
competitive beatboxing,
of rap music.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
I've never been a competitive beatboxer, but we've got to be related. I rapped when I was a child. Why not? And I messaged him, and he was like, "Hey, so cool to meet you, man. Not related." I was like, "What are the odds? It's so much like me and people related to me."
How does he know?
How does he know? Well, because all right, my last name's Roundtree. As you and I might have discussed in the past, Funkhouser, do you like the Kit Kat bar?
Well, sometimes.
Well, you're welcome, because my family invented that. Like my last
Used
name
to be called
Roundtree.
like the Roundtree bar back then.
No, it was just Roundtree's Kit Kat, and I think it still is. I think it's still so. Like my family. And by the way, whenever anybody hears this, especially females, they automatically assume I'm a chocolate dynasty billionaire, that I've got unlimited money and chocolate, and that's just not true. My family sold to Nestle's back in the 80s, so I didn't get to reap any of the rewards that my father did. He had sort of like this Charlie and the Chocolate Factory-esque experience where they offered him tours of the candy factory, and they would send him a box of Kit Kat every single Christmas. And at one point, I think my father was asked if he would be interested in running the company. Like, would you like to come back to England, and would you like to be sort of groomed to take over operations of this candy factory? Like, and to my dad's credit, when he was 16 years old, if you were 16, Funkhouser, and someone said, would you like to come and run a candy company, what would you say?
A candy company? Oh, yeah. Man.
I know. And I asked my dad, I was like, why didn't you do it? And he was just like, I was 16. I was playing Little League. I just, it wasn't even a question. I was like, I would have found a way to make it work. You mean you didn't want to? You didn't ask your parents if you could? And he was like, no, I didn't know anything about running a company. Anyways, so that's my family.
That's like Cooper Hefner. He was set up to take over the Playboy brand, and he didn't for a long time. And now he's saying he's going to revitalize it for millennials. But yeah, he was in the same boat. Like, why do I want to do what my dad did? That sounds dumb.
Yeah, I don't know.
I'm 22. Why would I want to do that?
Who knows what my father's thought process was on this, but it is a little unrealistic to, pull up stakes and move to a different country. But there's a really easy way of me telling whether or not someone's related to me. If their last name is the same as mine, Roundtree, I can go, are you related to the Kit Kat people? And if they go no, I know they're not related to me, to answer your question.
Leave the stimulation to the professionals.
Everyone is so smart.
KPRC, more stimulating talk radio.
There's something happening here, and you should know what it is. The dumbing up of America. Now, more AD on the radio.
So we'll talk about the fiendish criminal mastermind that convinced some friends of his to help him move. What they did not realize was that they were helping him rob a house. We'll get into that a little later. Right now, though, let's take a look at the events of today. Funkhouser, what is going on in the news?
Well, I want to go back to the Kit Kat thing. Can I ask you a couple more questions?
All right.
Like, okay, so if now you were given the company, would you take it? And what would you do with it?
Well, I mean, it's
let's say your dad kept it, and then he was at this point in time, he'd be like, okay, it's yours now.
That's a very good question. It'd be one of those, like, look, everybody was very, very sad when the company was sold. The employees were sad. The whole town was sad. Like, it's really weird. A whole bunch of my relatives going back, that was not weird, I guess it's kind of cool, No,
it's a fantastic story. Like,
they were Lord Mayor of York, like the town that it was in. They were Quakers. And it's funny because
what's a Quaker?
My father, Quaker, the folks that make the oats. Quaker oats. It's a type of Christianity, and it's an interesting thing because Quakers were abolitionists. They were absolutely 100% against slavery in all of its forms. Quakers were very kind of like simple people, I suppose. Really, I mean, look, there's still Quakers. They exist today. And my grandfather was a Quaker,
like
not really
Amish?
sort of like. Not quite to the level of Amish, because, technology is fine. Using technology, they ran a candy factory. But they believed in being very, very fair, equitable businessmen and women and employers, and doing everything they could to kind of like help the society around them. So they'd done a ton, besides employing like a large chunk of the town that the company was based in. They'd done a ton to sort of like help those in need. They had a lot of sort of charitable initiatives. There was a lot they did. They had sort of, and still do have,
family-run chocolate company. I think they all do cool stuff like that.
Maybe, but I mean, and there's still sort of like there's a foundation, and they do everything they can to fight. They're sort of like an anti-poverty organization as well. There's all sorts of stuff that they do, and all very sort of, I guess, helpful to those around them. is the general gist of the thing. So people were very, very sad when the company got sold to Nestle. Bear in mind, the guy who's running Nestle is one of those guys that says, like, I don't know if I believe that water is a human right. You know, like that guy.
Let's sell it.
Yeah. So like they, you know, this company that was headed by people that employed locally, that advocated for workers' rights, that advocated to stamp out poverty, that advocated for fairness and advocated for education and advocated for anything that they could do to help societally stamp out injustice wherever they went. They somehow wind up selling to a company where the head guy is like, I don't know if everybody really deserves water. They should pay us for it. So if it was a choice where I could go back and rewrite that personal bit of history and manage to keep the company away from the clutches of those folks, then it'd be a tough one, because my interest level in running a candy factory, as much as it sounded great when I was a kid, not something I have even a shred of interest in now.
That's why I ask.
Yeah, but in terms of, you know, hindsight being 20/20 and knowing what would happen to the direction of the company once it was purchased by Nestle, then yeah, I think I would. I'd do what it took to stop that from happening.
Yeah, if you knew that was going to happen, sure.
But yeah, no. When I say Quakers are a simple people, they're not Amish. My father used to have this expression, and still does, and that is an elegant sufficiency. Now, when you say elegant, people sort of picture women dressing up in fancy dresses and attending balls. But elegant, you know what the dictionary definition of elegant is, Funkhouser?
No,
It means just enough. Not too much, not over the top, just enough. So something that is an elegant solution means, like, you know what? It's a simple solution. It's not all
It's very
purpose. It's not all pointlessly difficult. So an elegant sufficiency means just enough, just what you need, not over the top. And that was kind of what my family lived by, and what my father still does live by.
Well, I mean, from your father, right? Not from your grandfather.
No, my grandfather was even more that way. Like, and it goes back to that thing. You've heard me talk about my grandfather on the show before, but he had this. Look, my grandfather was part of British intelligence, stormed the beach at Normandy, kissed on the cheeks by de Gaulle. He was a war hero. He spoke like 5 different languages, and he ran a company, a really big company. But he didn't live in a massive, ostentatious house. He didn't drive showy cars. Everything was sort of just enough. Family was very important to him, and he had an ability that I'll never forget, and I'll never forget because I've always heard people talk about it. He had an ability when he was talking to you. Didn't matter if you were a coworker, didn't matter if you were a head of state, didn't matter if you were the garbage man. He had a way of making you feel like the center of the world, and he did that by giving everybody his full, undivided, dedicated attention and treating them like a real person, regardless of who they were or what social station they held. So I think probably my grandfather was very much that way. But and ironically, you want to hear something funny? He did not go into the family business. He didn't do the candy thing. He struck out and did something wildly different. He ran, wait for it, Reckitt and Coleman, French's mustard. Like, the rest of the family went sweet, he went savory. But ultimately, he was still, like, working in the world of
French's
delicious
mustard,
yum-yums.
That's amazing.
Yeah, he ran that company. Like, it's the weirdest thing. I know. Look, all my family are, like, they're all sort of, like, there's that, and then the rest of them, all of his kids, became scientists and lawyers. Like, they're all lawyers on that side of the family. They're all lawyers, except for one cousin who became, and I didn't think this was actually a real thing until I thought this was straight out of science fiction. I didn't think this was a real thing until I found out my cousin was one. He's an astrophysicist, but he's an astrophysicist that got bored of physics, so applied an astrophysicist level of intelligence to finance, and now owns a decent sized chunk of New Jersey. Like, that's that. But here I am telling, like, butt jokes on the radio.
All right, well,
that's so.
Let me ask you another thing then. So you have a family history of a candy company. So let's say at this point in time, you could do what your grandpa did and go to another type of company that's similar but different. What would you choose to manage if you could follow in your grandfather's footsteps and go
food?
Yeah, like food. Like what kind of food would you like to manage?
I have no desire to work in the world of food. I really like candy. I mean, if it wasn't like my family's candy company, I really, really like Sour Patch Kids and Swedish Fish. I think
there's an untapped market in that somehow.
Did I ever tell you that once I met and had. I mean, at the time, I was in a committed relationship, and she was in a committed relationship, and me and the girl I was with were really not getting along, really, really going through a lousy patch, and and go to a party and meet this woman who's introduced to me is oh, you probably have a lot to talk about. Your family invented the Kit Kat bar. Her family invented Fireballs, Lemon Heads, and Red Hots. Not even joking. And we got along great, and she was so nice, but she was also
really?
Married. And I remember the girl I was with at the time was bet you wish you were with her instead of me. And I was just
what candy have you made recently?
But it was so weird. I was just how did the person related to the Kit Kat bar wind up meeting the person related to Lemon Heads at a party? It was really unbelievable. Too bad
you weren't
surreal.
single. There's so many ins that you could use. There's so many cool introduction lines.
Well, yeah.
We got to save it for another show, though, because
we do. Did we do any news? No, we didn't. Did we? We got to talk about the guy who weaseled a fiendish criminal mastermind who got some friends to help him move. What they did not realize is they're actually robbing a house for him. This is actually, there's almost nothing worse than a friend asking you to help them move. What an affront to your friendship. It just clearly shows they don't really value you as a friend when somebody asks you to do that. You know what I did last time I had friends help me move, Funkhouser? You know what I did?
What
paid
you do?
them. I paid them.
Oh.
I was this is not me asking you for a favor.
Not in beer? That's crazy.
This is me saying I have a crate of beer, and I did. I don't drink beer, so I can't remember how I ended up with it, but I had a pallet of Rolling Rock or something.
You need the right currency.
I was I'll give you each $100 and let you drink this after you're done helping me move if you do that. I was I'm not going to devalue our friendship by asking you to pick this up for nothing. So, yeah. Asking somebody to help you move, that's just wrong. Morally reprehensible thing to do. I'm looking at you, Funkhouser, for next time you move. I'm just getting this out of the way. This is how I feel about the subject.
Oh, I'm in the middle of a huge move, so I understand.
Yeah, I know you are.
I didn't ask any of my friends on purpose because I'm not a friend if I ask them.
I'll never forget the guitar player in my band, a guy called Gareth. When I was moving, I called him. I was like, "Hey, man, I'm moving." And he's like, "No problem. I'll get Joe's number for you." It was just he got me another. I was
I have somebody perfect for the job, not me.
Yeah. I was you know what? That was probably the right thing to do. And that was the guy I wound up giving $100 to. Anyways, 36-year-old guy named Patrick Adams Jr. from Great Falls, Montana, asked a couple of friends to help him move this past July just gone by. They couldn't have been close friends since they'd never been to his house before, but they agreed to do it. And one of them even rented the U-Haul for him. And they cleared out the house with him, which took 2 full U-Haul trips. Well, turns out, not Patrick's house. He'd actually lied to his friends about helping him move, and they were actually helping him rob the place. The cops investigated, and they finally arrested Patrick on Thursday for felony burglary and felony criminal mischief.
You never invite me to your house? This house is great, man. You just invite me over to move it? This is weird.
The real justice in the situation is that his friends aren't looking at any charges. The guy who asked his friends to help him move, which was really code for help me rob this house, he's looking at up to 30 years in prison and a $100,000 fine. Well, Funkhouser, you told me to tell the story. What you gonna do now? Oh, play us out with some music? There you go. Impeccable timing. Thank you so much for hanging. Thank you for being a part of our radio family.
Can we do this again tomorrow?
As always, the time that you and I spend together, it's the best part of my day, every single day. Our thoughts, prayers, and condolences are with everyone suffering in Las Vegas and those suffering in Puerto Rico. Thank you so much for being a part of our radio family. Have a good one.